25 years. And I've learned so much. The conversation that we want to attempt to have here tonight is reminiscent of what we do in our spaces when no one's there. Right? We want to give you guys a moment to catch some insight into what we feel that the community needs to hear. And a lot of this is sparked based on the brilliance of, first of all, 25 years ago, an album came out called Let's Get Free. I don't know if this is a great thing to admit, but some of the messages are more relevant today than they may have been then. And so this is a moment we should conversate about, right? And bigger than that, I want to talk about new things because we move forward, and the brothers have produced this incredible offering of wonderful book that I can't wait for you guys to read, entitled Music, Message, and Movement. And it gives you a chance to really see the insight and the backs that we stood on to be able to get where we are today. And so, first and foremost, I want to just give my brothers the chance to introduce themselves, and then we will probably begin this.
Well, since Umi began with me, I will begin. First of all, I want to say how thankful I am to be in your presence today, and I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for taking your time to be here and be a part of this conversation, which to me is tremendous and important. So first of all, thank you. My name is Matuku Olubala, also known as M1, M de la Gente Comprende, as my homie Don D has donned me. And I'm one half of their prez, and I thank you for being here. Yeah. What do you do, Brooklyn?
I'm Stick, and I'm not from Brooklyn, but I lived here 10 years, and it was some of the most powerful times of my life. So it's good to be kind of home. You know what I mean? So much so that the back doors of the brick is on Ashland's side was my crib. Right? So it's full circle. Yeah, so super excited to be here. We got a lot of new things coming down the pipeline in our creative field. A new book, Music, Message, Movement, a new album, and I know we gonna tell the title yet, but we've been working in multiple things collectively and individually in tech and Afro tech and so many different levels. You know what I mean? So we're excited to build with y'all.
Yeah, a lot of movement. And because we've coined this particular conversation, music, message, and movement, let's start by speaking about the book itself. I want to kind of give insight to it. But in the book, you break down the revolutionary just definition as it relates to music itself. What defines revolutionary music? And I thought it was brilliant as it relates to truth, risk, impact, timelessness, and freedom. I thought that was spot on. Can you expand on this and why these 5 elements are so essential? Can we start there?
For sure. So first of all, the book is an audio book, by the way. So me and my partner are reading it, and the print will be coming forward. But what he's referring to is kind of like five qualities that we try to identify when we look at what we call revolutionary music. Whether it's Nina Simone, Fela Kuti, Tupac, you know what I mean? And various other ways, that rebelliousness shows up in our art, right? And what we found, and I'm sure many scholars, many greater minds can find other qualities, but what we landed on was these 5. So, truth. Number 1, shit gotta be real. What are we truth, what's happening, you know, in the world, in ourselves, and just authenticity, right? And being grounded in that, in our art, having that kind of value system. Like, you know, it's important for us to inform ourselves of what is accurate, you know, to the best of our ability. You know what I'm saying? And you see that in all these different examples of artists bringing the truth, whether it was Billie Holiday and her era talking about black bodies swinging on trees. And they, you know, they tried to ban that, but it was the truth, right? And so forth, right? Then the second quality is risk, right? You know, what we call revolutionary artists know the risk involved and do it anyway. You know what I'm saying? Because saying what needs to be said, somebody got to do it. You know, so and it's a service, it's a choice that these different artists have made to sacrifice. You know, when Fela Kuti said he was going to expose Nigerian colonialism in his work, that was real smoke. You know what I mean? It wasn't just music. You know, it wasn't just a performance. You know, say like Childish Gambino's "This Is America" was a moment, but it wasn't a movement. You know what I'm saying? So the risk is a part of it. You know, and it's about risk management and making choices. Right? Then there was impact. Right? You know, revolutionary music is all about impact, not just doing it to do it, not just doing it because it's popular, but how does it impact the times, the culture, the kids, each other, you know what I mean, in different kind of ways. And then with truth, risk, impact, timelessness, and timeliness, which is the same thing, really, right? Because if we tap in, it's like you see the cycles in time, right? But in our time, what time is it? You know, and being able to, you know, be on the pulse of that, and that is a job, that is a service, that is a practice of ear to the street, listening to the people in our times, what's important in our times, what's coming down the pipe, you know, and finally, freedom. Right. You know, freedom of speech, as they say, right? And fighting for that right, and pushing that line, and holding that line. You know, these are elements, whatever different countries, like for example in Palestine, there's a whole political revolutionary movement of people talking about their right to freedom. You know what I mean? And that's what, when we see that, we recognize that's not just beats and rhymes. Like that's a fight for freedom, using music as a weapon, as Fela would say. So when you see, when you look at music in popular culture or local or any genre, right, or in really any art form, not even just music, there's going to be an element of truth and authenticity. There's going to be some risk involved in saying what needs to be said. You know, it's going to be impactful, right? It's going to touch lives and change perspectives, right? It's going to be timely and timeless, right? And it ultimately is going to add on to our consciousness towards developing what freedom can look like through our imagination and then in real time.
I feel that. And that's a mantra call to action, like slogan that you brought forth. It's so dope. And as we talk about different mantras and moving forward, can you share some of your own moments in your personal career, where you saw firsthand how your own music could be a call to action?
You know, and thank you, Umi, for that question. It's funny because I traveled around the world with this dude forever, and he acting like these formal questions. Very good.
Mr. Umi.
I gotta say I'm witnessing it in real time. You know, what's so crazy is 25 years later, I met this guy in Tallahassee, Florida. And when I met him, he was the same analytic mind, you know, who had studied the Black Panther platform, the 10 points of the Black Panther platform, and was not only so inspired by it that we weren't like charged with reliving it. You know, I remember literally recreating it, almost as if we were Huey Newton and Bobby Seale. Like, as if that didn't happen and we were like, what the fuck is going on in this hood today? Let's break it down. And what's so crazy is that's what I just saw. So I think the brilliance of who Stic is and the moments that you say that you're asking me that I witnessed is these are the things. Like, because who in the time had a checklist of how your music could be impactful or how your music could gauge where it could really be? I needed it. When I heard Brand Nubian and Gangstar, when I was listening to all these things, they didn't bring the checklist. You know, and not saying that they needed to, but I gotta say, for the future MC, the future artist who is an artivist, it is important that we lay down some sort of kind of ground rules, because all of it can't fly. So we have to measure impact. We got to measure risk. We got to measure, are you talking about freedom? Are we talking about freedom? And because if it ain't, and it's cool, we can do all the rest, but we got to pull for those of us who here for what we're here for, we got to pull the rest of that shit off the table. So we measure it based on the shit that matters, and that's the shit you just laid out, bro. That shit is crazy. You know, I wish inside our crews, and for many years, you have no idea how many fellow artists in hip hop who I wanted to implement a political action element inside their own crews. I'm talking not just like something like Public Enemy. I'm talking about Busta Rhymes. I'm talking about Mobb Deep. People, Nas, people who really understood that their shit was impacted in a way, but they wanted to make sure it was seen a way, and they felt like we, just like Kanye thought, that we had a better measure on how do you do that, and like we didn't get it. It didn't come from us, but what came to us was able to be outlined by people like Stic, and I'm thankful for being his partner for 25. So I'm witnessing it. This is one of the moments.
My big brother right there. I wanted to add to that answer too, about how not just our music, but an example of music being impactful in the real world in a way, right? So many years in New York, some of y'all may know there was these concerts for Black August. How many of y'all ever been to one of the Black August concerts? You know what I mean? My man Lumumba in the building, big part of that, organizing and making that happen. Now, so check it, right? By us doing Let's Get Free and the type of music we was doing, when we connected with the organization that was putting that forth was the Malcolm X grassroots movement, right? And the way, what I want to say is that artists, music don't exist in a vacuum. You know what I mean? And us being able to collaborate and be comrades with MXG and Uhuru movement and different organizations who do the everyday work to organize these different solutions, that's key, you know, to being impactful, right? Because the music is powerful, but it's you know, when you see the army and they play the drums and you get the morale up, but you need the troops on the ground doing the work too. So working in tangent with organizations on the ground is also important of making impact. And with the Black August concerts, if you don't know, that was used to raise awareness and raise funds for political prisoners that's still behind enemy lines in the U.S. And so many of those brothers and sisters that are our OGs were able to feel cared about. Their cases was promoted and more people learned about their situations, you know what I mean? And some of the cats have came on over these 25 years. Brother Sundiata Akoli and many others. Fred Hampton Jr., you know? So we don't try to make it, the movement ain't about the artists, you know what I mean? We are in service of the movement. So when the organizers are putting in work, we want to be like, we got some soundtrack, we got some energy, we're gonna put that to the poetry of what y'all put in the newspaper, you know what I mean? And we work as a team, you know, teamwork make the dream work.
I know you're gonna ask questions, but I do have to say this. What Stick said is imperative. You know, we are cultural workers at service to the movement. We always have been, and not rappers. Like never wanted it that at all. So when you talk about cultural workers and what that actually means, that shit comes in there is an order to what this means. Like, so when we talk about being at service to the movement, you know, it's hard for me now to articulate how important it is that we have a movement to be at service to. See, because, you know, when we speak of the strength of who we are, a lot of times we wax way nostalgic, but we don't have these examples now. And for many years, to be honest, in the line of what you heard as Dead Prez music, I've been demoralized at our inability to free political prisoners, to win campaigns, to fight back police terror, to do these things. Like, I want to be free, for real. It's not like, it's not an exercise in, how can we come together and be oppressed. It's like, fuck these motherfuckers. So without like Malcolm X grassroots movement, we wouldn't have nothing to say. And with the thing, nothing to say. We're talking the talk, but it wouldn't be really about nothing. And I just got to say thank y'all. In 1998, I was in Cuba. And this is not about hip-hop at all. We were at service, man. We was in Alomar, illegally. Allegedly. Talk to the Center for Constitutional Rights about that. And I just got to say thank you for having a movement that we could be at service to. Again, it's hard to articulate when I think, and in my mind, this art is made for this reason. And today, the music and the culture that we have is so disattached from anything. So, I just got to say thank you. And thank all of our organizers and artists and all that.
It makes G just so much love. In that same spirit, you always, I've heard you guys a number of times speak on revolutionary music as strictly like way more than just protest music. You speak on it as like this progress music. Like what does that exactly mean? Progress music. Like tell us.
It's like the contrast of protest and progress.
Absolutely.
Like, well, we could look at it like this. Protest is what you're against, and progress is what you're for. You know what I mean? And you need to know both, right? Know thyself, know thy enemy. That's Art of War, Sun Tzu. So, but I think that's a great question because it points to the nuance and the spectrum of what we mean by revolutionary music, right? Like, you ain't gotta be the Panthers to make music that is progressive. You know what I mean? It's artists, you find your lane, you get in your lane. Bob Marley is a good example of one of the sweetest revolutionary messages. One love, was what he was known for, but you know, we know his fire in his catalog, you know what I mean? But he had a way of keeping love as the force, you know, in terms of what he was trying to communicate and push forward. So, immortal technique might have immortal technique, you know what I mean? Like, he gonna cut your head off, right? And that's gonna serve his purpose too, right? So we want to embrace the spectrum of because we hold people, you know what I mean? We don't want to just burn down Babylon. We want to build up our own, you know, what we want. So yeah, you know, that when we make that distinction of protest music, which might speak to some issue that we're rallying against, there also needs to be plenty room for the world we want to see. You know what I mean? Sometimes you hear in hip hop, so-called progressive hip hop, the whole conversation is about what you don't like in the mainstream hip hop, right? You know what I'm saying? So it's like we hear whatever goofy shit is you know, on the radio, and then you talking about the goofy shit on the radio, you know, and everything else is what we want to talk about. So even if it's just being able to have presence and be grateful, right, for what we do got, that is a positive thing. You know what I'm saying? Don't mean we don't got things to fight for, but gratitude is a part of where we want to get. So that's revolutionary too.
I want to speak to it. Peace, Mario. I want to speak to this a little just because there's so much at stake right now, y'all. And my partner Stick is so right. A lot of times I'm able to be reined in because we do talk about like how much, like I say, like fuck the police, but it ain't really about them. You know, it's what he is saying is real, and what are we for? You know, and I really would like to collect ourselves around that. Like, what are we really standing for? You know, to me, this is the most important conversation to be had at a time when there's, you know, it's crisis. Like, clearly crisis, even amongst the ruling class, who's gonna lead that? You know, like you're literally seeing a coup. Elon is pulling a coup on Trump as we see, you know, just for ruling class power. It's fun to watch, but it's not our ball game. You know, it's not our ball game. You know, what's important is we collectivize ourselves now around what are we for? What are we standing for? What will take us past what we've seen before when we don't have the same conversations again? And I don't mind it as long as we go forward. I don't have any distaste in my mouth around having ideological struggle. So we come somewhere. But the problem is we have to arrive somewhere, and you know, if y'all believe it's like in the Democratic Party or something, or you know, between the Republican Party, some sort of thing, I'm interested in debating that. You know, I want to know in the real world, seeing part of me, and if there's any kids here, the shit show that we have going on in America today. If we can have another conversation, I'm with that. You know, and so I just want to say. An urge with, you know, some sort of immediacy that we have conversations. You know, we can do it casually and shit. We don't have it. You know, I don't know how y'all feeling, but I know for me, you know, it's now. You know, so to lay it out in list form and even priority form would be cool for me. To have that conversation with you. And so, pardon me if I'm taking this time personally to ask for that in this room, but I don't think I hear that being asked for in a world where people are taking all that right away. Right? So I want to ask for that and say that. You know?
I'll give a case in point too, right? Because I went some years ago, maybe around 2010, I was in a space of feeling like, you know, we had Let's Get Free, we had Turn Off the Radio 1, 2, 3, 4, right? We worked with the Outlaws, we, you know, and the Marleys and you name it, you know, world touring, Cuba, Africa, all over with our music and talking about the issues that we all still know still exist, right? And I was feeling, as I guess it's natural as an artist to sometimes feel like, man, am I beating a dead horse? You know what I mean? Or is it redundant? Is it whatever? And sometimes I would be like, well, shit, how many booty shake songs is it? You know? You know what I mean? Like, we can get a few more of this progressive music. But I also was at a point where some of the feedback from our career of music, you know, the game will shape you. It'll tell you, oh, this is what you do. This is what you are, right? And we talk about freedom, right? We always want to, as artists, as human beings, we want to define ourselves, right? And in order to do that, sometimes you got to stretch yourself. You know, you got to be willing to risk, right? And so for me, I know that what powers what we do is inspiration. Like, I gotta be inspired. I gotta be feeling the shit. I gotta, you know, feel the urgency. And at that time, health and well-being was the crisis and the conversation most strong on my heart. You know what I mean? And so rather than be like, let me just do whatever the brand, whatever the, you know, that kind of shit. I'm like, my brand is be true. You know? So out of that space, I created something called Fit Hop, which to me is a supplement for warriors, right? You know, outside of maybe the direct politics conversations that are important that we need to have. When we go to the gym, we you know, when we keeping our physical tempo sharp and whatnot, we need music that supports that, right? And a lot of times we listening to the hard shit because it got the edge and it push you, but the little seeds of negativity and the just fuckery in the music, you don't really be wanting to hear that when you're trying to grow. But you want something strong and solid, right? So I saw an opportunity as an artist to create that then, you know, or my humble attempt to make something that's, you know, strong enough for the street, but wholesome enough for the family. You know what I mean? And so my albums, the Workout and Workout 2 is just a humble example of trying to fill the voids, be the change we want to see, and also keep inspired, you know, to keep making authentic shit happen. Yeah.
Solid, super solid, super solid. Speaking of hip hop and putting into perspective this whole idea of it sounds like, you know, this idea of understanding ownership. I want to talk real quick about that. That's something that my entire career have been blessed enough to be around the right people to understand that. So what's the difference as it relates to a successful artist and then an artist who owns their own movement, right? Like, and just in terms of how y'all have done it in this world, your own personal experience of doing it. What's the big difference in both of your opinions?
Say that again, between a successful artist and who?
And an artist that owns their own movement.
Their own movement?
Their own movement.
I'll start quickly. It's three things to me: legacy, equity, and integrity. You know, success is defined by many different metrics in the capitalist system, right? And whatever your metrics is, that's science. You can define it by those metrics. But if the metrics for success is legacy, equity, and integrity, then we can also measure that, right? So in that case, we rich. You know what I'm saying?
I want to add on to what Steve is saying, and because again, that's my ALI. I agree 100% as I'm thinking about what that means. When I think about that legacy, I think of history will absolve me. I think about in the end what can be said, because in these times, we may be seen as the scourge, as the terror. In this time, we may get painted by their propagandists as all of these things. Maybe it will be long after, and I don't want this to be this way, but I just got to say, in the time when, you are living in this colonial mentality, then it may be the soldier the Peter Tosh or even the Fela Kuti, who long after is celebrated, and then maybe they never got equity, but they always had the integrity, and so I just got to say that, to artists, we have to not mind sacrificing for now, knowing that the seeds we plant, because I gotta say, 25 years ago, making Let's Get Free, we didn't think, this could be the last time we could say anything to our people. So this is what we will say. And if that's what we have to say, then let's say it with all that we mean. And knowing that many years later it can mean something. And I'm hoping that artists today can take that kind of sacrifice for the future as well. Foregoing, the $1 billion mentality, and ain't nothing to matter with, and matter of fact, it is something matter with being a billionaire. It is. Actually, in capitalism, if there are billionaires, then there's so many people suffering. There are so many people suffering. I just got to unite with that. So, yeah, anyway.
It's powerful, super powerful. And we're talking about, give it up.